Pandit Satish Vyasji, pranams. And before actually I start conversation with you, a few opening remarks. So it's a pleasure having you on the Instagram live chat of InSync TV. But before I formally engage into a conversation, I want to tell the people who have joined a few opening remarks.
Okay.
One is we have a beautiful day with an open sky with all blue looking and nice weather in Mumbai from where we are holding this conversation. I am in the outdoor location and Pandit Satish Vyasji is located in his beautiful apartment in Chembur. But before I start, yesterday was a golden day for all of us who have a strong connect with Indian classical music. And I'll tell you why. Yesterday was Pandit Jasraj's 92nd birth anniversary, and that is when his daughter Durga Jasraj launched Pandit Jasraj Cultural Foundation, and this formal launch function was held at the hands of the Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. Now, one is that the Prime Minister of the country is launching this beautiful institution dedicated for classical arts. But what took me by surprise is the very deep knowledge that the Prime Minister had on Indian classical music. And he gave a 15-minute intense speech on Indian classical music. And friends, let me tell you, this was one of the best speeches that I've ever heard on Indian classical music. And for the sake of all of you, we immediately got the whole thing recorded, and we are going to play it on InSync TV very soon. Maybe from tonight, 9 o'clock, we will play it again and again, because we are all very excited to hear the Prime Minister put so much stress on the importance of classical music, especially in a country like India, where we are rich with tradition, we are rich with a very long background, lineage, and what have you. And when I talk of legacy, I'm reminded of the one of the greatest Hindustani vocalists, Pandit C.R. Vyas, who was an institution by himself. He trained thousands of people all over the country. And when we talk of his legacy, he had three children, three sons in fact. The first one, Suhas Vyas, the second one, Pandit Satish Vyas, and the third one, Sri Shashi Vyas. And the second son, Pandit Satish Vyas, not just accumulated the entire repository of classical music knowledge in terms of the ragas and their finer nuances, but actually did a little course correction. He went on to learn a different instrument and bring out the beauty of the vocal music onto that instrument, but at the same time following the core values of that instrument, which was nothing but Santoor. So Pandit Satish Vyasji, or shall I call you Padma Shri Pandit Satish Vyasji, you inherited the legacy of classical music. Then you went to another stalwart like Pandit Shivkumar Sharmaji, and then learned the art of playing Santoor. And today, in your own rights, you're one of the most popular artists, not only within the country, even outside the country. You extensively travel all over the world. So it's a pleasure today to have you in the chat show, Pandit Vyasji. Your opening remarks, sir.
First of all, I'm humbled with whatever introduction you did. I don't think I deserve all so many things you have said, but I accept everything with humility. And I first welcome all the people. I think there are a lot of musicians I'm seeing who have joined the, this conversation of ours live. So I thank every one of them. Apart from the musicians, there are a lot of music lovers who are joined, and I'm really touched by their grace. And of course, I'm extremely grateful to InSync for inviting me for this, whatever that Instagram chat. Actually, to tell you the truth, I'm not so much into gadget. I'm not so gadget friendly. But anyway, I have learned by experience over the last 2 years, because this pandemic has forced you to get into gadgets, mobile, iPad and all that. And I think I'm fairly able to maneuver the thing. So if I do any mistake, my apologies right in the beginning, So I'm really touched by your grace, and InSync is doing a great service to the classical music industry. There is nobody else who can do what Mr. Ganesh Kumar you are doing, and with your team, entire team in InSync. what should I say? Let me wish you Happy New Year, because we have not reached January 31st yet. So I wish everyone who joined our conversation a wonderful 2022, and I'm sure we'll be corona-free 2022 in a short while. In next 1 or 2 months, things should become more or less normal, and classical music should gain back its glory of concerts everywhere and all that. That's all I can say, but I'm thankful to you.
Well, let us say corona free but Santoor full,
Yeah.
2022. So we are going to hear you more and more. And let me formally begin our chat.
Yeah.
We very briefly mentioned about your legacy in terms of interact your father, Pandit Vyas. And if I remember rightly, you used to live in an apartment in Matunga, which is almost in the center of the heart of Mumbai.
Yes.
And I'm sure during your childhood, a lot of musicians, your father was so popular. So there were a lot of musicians visiting your house. And you, as a young child, did you really connect with music at a young age, or initially it used to be a kind of a hindrance to your youthful, normally a child would like to play and spend time outside. So how did you balance and manage these two things?
I know. You see, the point is, I have spoken on this topic at many various platforms, but I know it may amount to repetition for some people who have joined, who know me personally. But still, I have to say, because there are a lot of new people who will be listening to me for the first time, maybe. So very briefly, let me go back. We used to live in a building called Bhutanivas, and we were in 2.5 room apartment. So we 4 brothers, my mother and father. Suhash, Anil, though he is my cousin brother, but he is more like a real brother. Shashi and myself and my parents, we used to be together. And to tell you the truth, until the children are more smart than what we were at the age of 5 or 6, We used to, I think, in our times, we started understanding things what are happening around us only after the age of 6, 7, or maybe sometimes 8 also. Unlike today, a 5-year-old kid also operates, and they teach the parents or grandparents, oh, you don't know, this is like that. So maybe I don't know, around 6, 7, when I started understanding, I realized that, oh, my father is a musician, and because the number of artists who used to come, they were so popular artists in those days. If I take few names like Pandit Ram Marathe, Manik Verma, Pandit Jitendra Abhisheki, Pandit Prabhudev Sardar, and on the top of that, my father's both gurus, Pandit Rajaram Bua Paradkar and Pandit Jagannath Bapurai, they used to frequently visit our house, and the conversation used to be always music. But to tell you the truth, we were not listening to it. I was not listening to it with full seriousness, but we used to enjoy their conversation. My time used to go in playing, cricket or lagori or koiba. That is the, I don't know, the हम लोग गोटी बोलते हैं उसको. So that kind of a thing was there. But my first turning point came when I was around 13, 14 years old, which of course many people know, that I chanced, accidentally I went with my father to a concert in Sion, Vallabh Sangeet Vidyalaya, and the concert was, I didn't know who is going to be performing and what is the thing, and I just went because my father took me there. And when the curtain opened, I saw a very handsome personality sitting with an obscure instrument which I had never seen, because we were familiar with sitar and sarod and violin, flute and all that, but this instrument the shape was quite different, and the person who was sitting with the instrument was so handsome that given the age, it had a tremendous impact on me. And later on, for 2.5 hours, the music which flowed from the stage through Santoor was just mesmerizing. It really completely transformed me. It was hypnotizing. The personality, the instrument, the music, everything. And I'm sure everybody must have guessed by now, this was none other than my revered guru, the legendary living legend, Pandit Shivkumar Sharma ji. So when I came home the same day in the night, I told my father that I want to learn this instrument. So my father said, okay, good, you want to learn. I'm happy that you want to do something in music. That was the day I started taking interest in music. So from next day onwards, when somebody used to come to my father, my ears were there, slowly like that. So my father advised me at that time that at least you should become a graduate, number one. Number two, given the age right now, it may not be right to go and take Santoor because it's a different instrument. You have to squat on the floor, take it on the lap and all that. So he said, but in the meantime, you start learning vocal music, because if you learn vocal, it will give bass and you can then learn any instrument. So I don't know what view he had, but anyway, like unlike today when children argue with their parents, there was no question of any argument. So I told my father, okay, I will go by whatever you say. So I started taking interest in my studies very seriously. I really, after that only, I studied very, otherwise I was more into playing and not so much interested in studies. But it was changed from music point of view and from academic point of view, both. So I started working very hard, and I on the academic side, I did a good job of, finishing graduation, post-graduation, and then MBA. So all that I did. So every Sunday, generally, I used to sometimes sit with my father to learn vocal music. Apart from that, in subconscious mind, a lot of music was going, because he used to get really some of the renowned artists to learn from him in the house. And then we started thinking, yeah, these are such a renowned people. But when they're talking, I find my father is, like as a son, I used to feel, my God, my father's knowledge is like the vastness of his knowledge was so humongous, and the quality was so powerful. So in my mind, I always used to say, "Kya re, to dunya kuch alag hai." ऐसे मन में आता था as a young person. Anyway, but leave apart. But that subconscious mind, when he used to teach people, the other musicians, particular rag or particular conversation was going into subconscious mind, which I didn't realize then. But when I now perform, I realize, "Arey, ye rag ke bare mein, this was the conversation." I remember what he said. What are the nuances of a rag like Shri or Puriya Dhana Shri or like that, So for 9 years, I would say it was learning. Partly academic qualification and all that was going on. And then in 74, when I appeared for my 74-75 for my final paper of Masters in Science, I came home and I told my father, as per your wish, I not only have finished graduation, but I have given, and I am confident that I'll pass with first class distinction. Now you have to take me to Shivji for Santoor lessons. So Santoor was the cause for me to come into classical music. And then within couple of months, my father took me to Shivji, and of course it was a great meeting. And then he used to respect my father so much. He said, I remember his sentence, still it rings in my ears, कि आप जैसे कलाकार का लड़का अगर मेरे पास सीख रहा है तो it's a really my pleasure to teach him. And then my journey started with him in 1975-76.
Well, that's a very, very interesting recollection of your childhood right up to the day when you met your guru of Santoor.
Yes.
For every creative person, there is one spot of time in their entire career of life when something changes in them, and then it kind of triggers, and it triggers into an action which there is no back, and there is only a fast forward, and from that day they launch onto a different kind of a world. And as far as Pandit Satish Vyas is concerned, that day was the concert that he heard in Vallabh Sangeet Vidyalaya at Sion,
Yes.
which changed the entire course of life.
Yes, absolutely.
Imagine a person belonging to a very conservative, traditional Maharashtrian vocal family normally would have thought that the son also would take on to the vocal singing, because the father was such a great genius and a stalwart that the normal expectation would have been it would be a vocalist. But that one small incident and that mesmerizing personality and the charisma of Pandit Shivkumar Sharmaji is something that, no one can escape that. So
Yes.
when you saw such a personality seated on the stage, I only wish that Developed Sangeet Vidyalaya continued. I'm told it does not exist anymore. But those days,
Yeah.
it is there. But those days it was a fulcrum of all the classical music
Yes.
events.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
so that center has created a stalwart called Pandit Satish Vyas today. But I'm going back. I'm going back again to your formative years.
Yeah.
Now, one is the musical knowledge that you gained from your father,
Yeah.
from your environment, from the surroundings, from the house, as you were eating, as you were drinking chai or what have you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people constantly visited, and all this was getting inside.
Yes.
But you took your father's word seriously that you must also continue your education. So
Yeah.
not only you did that, and like you just mentioned, in 75 you did the graduation and you passed with distinction. So that must have been a stage where one had to take a choice. There are two areas: one, the corporate world, which kind of entices you with a lot of monetary benefits, where you were already a distinction holder. So there was a big world looking out for you in the corporate circle. And here was another, where it was the passion, the thing that was close to your heart, that is wanting to learn Santoor. And while you did go to Pandit Shivkumar Sharmaji wanting to learn Santoor, but Panditji, you actually chose the corporate world in the initial stages.
Yes.
If I know rightly, while you were still practicing Santoor, but it was the corporate world that you chose first. And if you can relate that and say, why did you choose that? And number one. And number two, at some point of time, why did you again change course and come back to music? I think that's a very interesting aspect of your life.
So now this will take a long answer, but I'll cover many points in this particular question. Number one, classical music in those days, not even today, I won't advise any youngster that, if they are learning music, they should do full-time profession. If they are very serious, they must do a tightrope walk. I would recommend. People may not agree with me, but my personal choice, because first of all, we were not born in a rich family, number one. My father was a classical musician. Those days classical music was not so much commercialized as much as it is today. Today, many youngsters are perceiving that they would like to pursue this as a profession, full-time profession. That's good. I wish them all the best. But in my situation, I had a qualification, number one, and I said, I just don't want to sit in the house and nobody can do 24 hours riyaz and all that. Riyaz can be done in mind also, because there are many things which you have to think about music. So I thought, why not? And another, I think I'm blessed for whatever reason. Every job which I did walked into my house. I didn't have to apply anywhere. So I remember when I finished my MSc, even the results had not come. One of my mother's friend's daughter, she had gone to Shanmukhanand for some drama or something, and while returning, they walked and they came to our house, and I was in the house. So with my mother's friend's daughter, there was another lady called Sunanda. She used to work for ICICI. So we had naturally conversation to. So I said, I just appeared for MSc with my mathematics, statistics, and all those subjects I explained. So he said, oh, why don't you give me an application to my office? I will forward it, because we are looking for a person of your profile. And believe me, within a few days, I was into ICICI. I'm taking the name. But those days, ICICI was not a retail bank; it was a development bank. Like my colleagues were like KV Kamath, and all people were, in those days we were together working. In mid-90s, the ICICI changed from development to retail bank, because the complexities of financial entire market had changed. There I was 8 years, and those were years where something I would say I was wearing too many hats. it came on me, maybe, and I accepted it. Given the age, I could accept. So one, I was doing my MBA. Number two, for 76 to 78. Number two, I was working for ICSA. Number three, I used to go every evening to Shivji's house. Not that I used to learn every day. Our sessions used to be mostly on Sundays, actually. And he never used to look at watch. You know, once we sat, we would sit for 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours. So once I used to go in the morning, I used to come in the night only. The whole day, you know, learning, and I was like a family person, and that I will come later. Then what happened? My father, you know, he founded this trust called Maharashtra Lalit Kala Nidhi, and under the aegis of that, he started a festival called Gunidas Sangeet Sammelan. So I remember I was not involved in the beginning. While fixing up the artist, he had fixed the very first Sammelan in 1977, which was at Rabindranath Mandir. But after maybe just before, a couple of months before the program, one day I found my father sitting with serious face. I said, what happened? He said, no, our advertising expense, printing is being taken care by ITC Limited, because those days, you know, they used to sponsor in a small way many musical concerts all over India, but they used to promote their cigarette brand, actually, which was later on people did not like that, you know, why cigarette should be, but it was a commercial approach, so you could not challenge that. So he said, but the other expenses like hall rent, artist expenses, their lodging, boarding, all that has to be done by us. And in I remember in the first year, it was a 5-day festival with 17 artists participating, 17 artists. And you know, the total expense was going to be around 75,000 that time, which would be...
This was around 1978, 79.
77.
77. Oh, okay.
1977, okay. First year. So that is where I again applied my management, whatever
skills.
I collected my friend. I said, don't worry, Baba, we will do something. And I used to do a lot of homework. I used to study what's happening around. So I had seen that bringing out the brochure was the best idea to recover the cost. And since I was, I was in a company where, you know, development bank, all big companies, CEOs, MDs, and industrialists used to visit. So there was a department called Operations Department who used to handle this. So I talked to a few of my colleagues. He said, don't worry, Satish, you just get the appeal and we will get. Believe me, in 7 days, because there was no compulsion to anybody, but each company has a casual budget for advertising. And they generally give it when some reference comes. So our reference was most powerful, you know, coming from, you know, development bank. So I would say that the entire cost of the festival was recovered in 7 days before the program. So my father was relieved. And, you know, this gave me some kind of, with humility I can say, not in a wrong way, but it gave me an ego satisfaction, I would say. Because in the first, oh, I can do this. That was the satisfaction. So similarly, second year happened. And then I started taking involvement in, so after 3 years, it so happened that most of the big artists like Bhimsen Doshi ji, Kishori Amonkar, Pandit Jasraj ji, my Guruji Hari ji, of course, every day we were meeting in the night, you know, every day we used to have dinner together for more than 10-15 years. Because I used to go to Shivji's house and Shivji and Hariji were together all the time. So, Zakir Bhai, all these artists. So they used to tell my father, "Arey Pandit ji, aap chinta mat kariye, aap Satish ko phone karne ke liye." So I would say that I got, can say, you know, like Abhimanyu Chakravyuha, I got into that Chakravyuha, you know, and I have no hesitation in saying that at that time you feel, you know, बोलते हैं ना flattering करते जैसे कि अरे artists are calling and all that. I don't want to go into detail, but you can imagine what happens. So like that, this Gunidas Sammelan started, and then we, you know, in the 5th year we got Pandit Ravi Shankar to conclude, which was a big event in 1981. And just now the great Pandit Birju Maharaj passed away. I still remember his performance in 1982 Oh my God, it was amazing. 4.5 hours non-stop he danced. So on one side, this was going on. So what happened that in 84, I used to go generally, I used to attend a lot of concerts and they used to be in Rang Bhavan because late 70s and early 80s, the classical music started growing commercially. People started organizing because earlier there was only one festival, Sur Singer Samsad, Kalke Kalakar and some other festival. But later on, Bombay Music Circle and some other festivals, Gharana Sammelan, apart from Gunidas. So late 70s onwards, the classical music started seeing commercially better days, I would say. So I used to attend many other programs in Birla Mato Shri or Rang Bhavan or like that. And in NCPA, only two theatres were there, Tata Theatre and Little Theatre. So I used to attend those also. So after office, I used to go sometimes. So those days, I never used to go to Guruji's house. I used to attend concert because listening, my Guruji also used to say, listening to other music is very, very important. So I remember after the concert, I had gone to Tata Theatre and in the interval, I was sitting in 5th row or something. And in the first row, the great Pula Deshpande was sitting because he was the honorary director of NCP at that time. So in the interval, when he got up and he just turned his face and he saw me. So he called me. And then his first sentence was, "Arey Satish, तुझ्या बद्दल बरीच कीर्ती ऐकतोय. I am listening lot good things about you. So a lot of things about you." So I said, "I hope it is good." Yes, yeah. He said, "If it is good." Then he said that, "Why don't you come and meet me? I have got some work with you. You come after 2 days." Now imagine every person is in awe of Pula Deshpande. Now this personality inviting from front was itself what a great huh? What a great
An honor.
Honor, absolutely honor. So I went to NCPA after 2 days, and we were sitting, and across the table, he told me, "See, the other day when I met you, what I wanted to tell you, I've been listening a lot good about you because you are doing a great job of Gunidas and you are meticulous planning, everything." So I said, "It's all blessings of my parents, my guru, and people like you." I said, "And well wishers of music lovers, you know." So he said, "Why don't you come and join me here and help me in NCPA?" So I was taken aback. I said, "My God." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "No, I want you to come and handle the program division here." Believe me, Ganesh Kumarji, I said, "Okay." Because I was so much in awe of Pula Deshpande, I said, "Yaar, ICICI job chodo, I would like to go and be with Pula Deshpande. What more can you do?" And I must say that that was a good decision, I would say. So I came and it was already 8 years I had finished with ICICI. Here, my practice, I used to get up at my day used to be of 20 hours. I used to sleep only for 4 hours in those days. So morning riyaz, then office, then evening some concert or go to Guruji's house. So many things I used to do, you know. And in a year, 6 months was planning for Gunidas. That was another big responsibility. So too many things I was handling. So anyway, within a month's time, I joined NCPA. And I must tell you, it was one of the best period. You know, I made it a point. I told Pula Deshpande in my first day of the NCPA work, I said, "Look, I would like that Tata Theatre is a big theatre. So every first Saturday, let us have a celebrated artist and 4 concerts of young artists in Little Theatre." So I don't want to name, but those days, such young artists were presented. Some of them have become now national artists of today's, which I feel nice. But the credit is theirs because they were such talented. But in those days, so like that, 4 young artists and 1 celebrated artist. Apart from there were too many things. I had the opportunity to work with Zubin Mehta in NCPA because in 84 May I joined, and in August he came with New York Philharmonic Orchestra to Tata Theatre. And I remember our I'll call you later. I'll put off the phone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem. While you're doing this, let me give it a little pause and connect some of the aspects, because the people who are listening,
Yeah.
some of them may not be initiated into music. So for their benefits, let me make some clarificatory remarks. You mentioned about the Gunida Sammelan which your father was doing, and with your management skills and abilities, the time when your father found it a little stressful to arrange for the resources for organizing such a big festival. Now, as an organizer, I can also realize that, more than 40 years I've been organizing big events, and I realize that without resources, however passionate you are, whatever dreams that you have, cannot see the light of the day unless they are backed by resources.
Yes.
So finding resources for organizing any major event or a festival is as important as the festival itself.
Of course.
Because once the resources are arranged, only then can you stage a successful festival. And as a big performer, as a big vocalist, your father, while he had all the goodwill spread around him, but he's not somebody who can go to the corporates and make an appeal, print a brochure, and request them for a sponsorship support or what have you. So your entry into this family, shall I call it a tradition now, because Sashi is also one of the largest event organizers, and I'm seeing that Pancham Nishad has also joined. So
Yeah.
this family tradition, you sowed the seed in terms of bringing that management background and organizing abilities into organizing an event. And this happened as early as 1977.
Yeah.
So having successfully handled Gunidas and having successfully interacted with the leading stalwarts of the classical music fraternity,
Yeah.
you could create a connect between organizing, the artist per se, the locations, and what have you. And that took you to the next step of being accosted by one of the greats of the Marathi tradition, Pandit, Tula Deshpande, who is a performer, who is an actor, who is
Yes.
a writer, who is an orator, and I don't know what all. I mean, he was some kind of a 360-degree person when it came to culture, and was one of the most illustrious names in the Maharashtrian tradition.
Absolutely.
And during his times, he found you and he accosted you in NCPA and offered you an assignment in NCPA. And this possibly was all decided by the providence, because that is when you once again disconnected from the corporate world and went back into the music world.
Yes.
And while you were continuing your Santoor practice with your guru, Pandit Shivkumar Sharmaji, you are also organizing events. You are also finding ways and means to have a successful event management in NCPA. Like you said, you gave opportunities not only to the stalwarts, but also young musicians. So it was, the equation was 1:4.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that is the way to go. And you did it in right earnest. And you could bring in a sense of responsible commitment to Indian culture, even with a large institution like the National Center for Performing Arts, which is possibly one of the largest in the country today.
Yes.
Though they had resources, but they needed resources in a different manner.
Yes.
They had the monetary resources, but in terms of the classical music knowledge resource, they found that in you. So
Yes.
while the step one was the resources because of the administrative ability, second, through that you had the resources in terms of the classical music connect, and that came to test when your assignment happened with NCPA. So
Yeah.
with that NCPA connect, but I have always wondered, रेखा हो रेखा जब से तुम्हें देखा,
I'm coming,
खाना पीना दुश्वार हो गया.
very shortly, I'm coming to that. Let me finish.
Yeah.
So what happened? That I had really
Yeah.
good time. I spent almost close to 2 years I was in NCPA. I know what happened.
Yeah.
NCPA started in 1977 at the time of Gunida. With humility, I can say a lot of, I don't want to say myself, but the music world acknowledges that the sponsorship concepts in classical music was brought by me. Maybe because I was working in a company like ICSA where the whole corporate world used to be there, because those days India was progressing economically. People were putting industries and they used to take loans in crores of rupees from these three giant institutions, ICICI, IDBI and IMCI. So that is a different topic, but briefly what I would like to say, that it was, my colleagues, including KV Kamath, they were very helpful for me. KV Kamath was so close to Reliance. So I remember the last page was always Reliance, because it was, I used to give it to Kamal. Kamal said, don't worry, I'll take care of it. So goodwill and good wishes of them also helped me. So I must acknowledge, there are some people who have helped us in that. Now, what happened in NCPA, because it was new and there were a lot of Western music concerts apart from Indian music concert every Saturday, first Saturday of the month, it became a hub for all the corporate honkos for cultural activity in Tata Theatre, because it was such one of the best theatre in the world, I would say, is Tata Theatre. So, there was one person called Mr. Ramamrudam. Maybe you know him. He was marketing director of Philips. Philips was a giant company, multinational company, a Dutch company. And he and his wife were great fans of my father. Apart from Bhimsen Joshi and certain, they were very, very, like 3-4 artists they used to adore so much. So they developed good friendship with me. Once they came to know that I am son of Pandit Vyas. So I still remember in 1985 towards end, one day Mr. Ramamrudam called me. He used to live in Malbaril, Citadel building. I remember the building name also. And he said, Satish, what are you doing this weekend? I said, no, I have Pandit Mallikarjun Mansoor's concert. So I will be free only. So, okay, don't worry. You finish at concert 9:30 and then you come to my house for dinner. So I went, because we had become good friends by then. His wife Saroja. Saroja, she was a baby Saroja, very famous person in Chennai.
Yes.
So we had dinner and all that, and then he took me to his bedroom and he showed me a round kind of a substance, So he said, do you know what is this? I said, no. He said, this is known as compact disc. Compact disc.
CDs.
CD. So he said, I have been interacting with you and I feel that I have a perfect job profile for a person like you who is trying to become a musician, who is a management graduate, has an experience and has a pragmatic view of looking at things. I said, what do you like to do? He says, no, I would like you to come and join Philips.
Oh.
And I have a special job profile for you because Polydor, the record label, the major stake was of Philips and he was the director on Polydor in India. So he said, I would like you to come because we are going to launch CD in coming 1 year, 1 or 2 years. And I would like a person like you to be, handling quite a few things he had for me. And I say that 4.5 to 5 years of Philips was a golden period. And wherever I used to go, my heart was always to promote classical music. I was pursuing music, which was one thing. But I also wanted to see that the classical musicians, who are very senior musicians, because, they should get their due because they put their life into this. So here was an opportunity in Philips. I talked to Kula Deshpande on this. I said, this is what. He said, look, whatever suits you, whatever you feel key, because I had taken one condition. I said, I would like to have liberty of taking leave anytime and I will do my job, that's for sure, in Philips particularly. But I would like, because my music is my priority. So he said, don't worry. We will, wherever it is there, we will do that, whatever you wish. And I tell you, that was a golden period. So through Philips, then I did concerts all over the country. Chennai, Bangalore, Calcutta, Delhi, Bombay, oh my God. And right from Pandit Ravi Shankar to every artist, my Guruji, Zakir Hussain, Kishori Tai. Kishori Tai had never sung in Chennai till then. When I took her for the first time, I don't want to say what she said, that I will tell you in privately, what she used the sentence at that time. I tell you, it was a touching experience and it was, but then an intoxication ho gaya tha, So, because money was not a problem in Philips, because it was conceived and executed completely on behalf of company by me. So from NCPA to Philips, and then what happened in 87, 88, we had gone to Russia, USSR. Then it was not disintegrated with my Guruji for a tour, And on return, what he said in the aircraft, he told me, Satish, now you are ready, you should start performing. So the first thing what I did, because I was waiting for that day. I didn't wanted to do myself anything. I wanted my Guruji to tell me. I think it was 86, 87 when the festival took place. So I said, Jaisi aapki aajna. And he also put one condition, ki aisa concert you should do when me and Vyasji both are there in the concert. So I still remember that. I'll come to you. Then I had asked my, that is where Rekha came into picture. Rekha was working for HDFC at that time. So I told her, this is what I feel. So he said, okay, you go, because she was earning. She said, don't worry. I told her I'm going to quit the job and I'm going to try my luck as a musician. And that I will do for 7 years. If in 7 years I'm not able to make any headway as a performer, then I will go back to corporate world because I have qualification, experience and everything. She said, don't worry, you go ahead, don't worry. So that she stood like a solid rock behind me.
No. I don't want you to restrict that portion. Before you go on to how she supported you later, I want to know, how did you first meet her? Okay. How did you get married to her? That is more interesting.
Okay. See, in those days, my parents always, a boy when he becomes 26, the parents start harassing, Arey, abhi shadi karo, shadi karo, shadi karo. So I used to refrain from doing that. So once my mother's brother, my mama had come to my house and suddenly he told my mother, Arey, I have got one very good girl in my mind for Satish. So I had already seen 1 or 2 and I had rejected because I didn't want to get married because I was so much, like ambitious at that time. कि नहीं मुझे संतूर करना है, मुझे ये करना है, मुझे और जब नौकरी करना है, because I want to be financially independent and don't want to be a burden on parents. All those thoughts were there. So again, my mother and father, mama ne laya, you must see. So I gave up. And I don't know, when I went there and it was her father was in Bombay Port Trust and same as my mama, he used to work for Bombay Port Trust. So her father and my mama were close friends and they used to live in the same colony. So one day it was a traditional way of, bolte na poha and chai jo hota hai waisa. Like it was accepted. Means I liked her and we decided to get married. So in fact, I was pursuing something else also at that time. So, but finally we got married in 1979, May 1979.
But to tell the viewers, Rekha ji was also a corporate person.
She became later because she had done her graduation in home. What is that? In home science and all that from SNDT. Then she did because she wanted to go in a teaching line.
Yeah.
But she used to teach also. But when she got married to me, after a year or so, I told her, yaar, ye sab teaching, theek hai tumhare liye. You should get into a corporate job. So I don't mind telling openly what happened. Deepak Parekh was a very close friend of mine. Now he is HDFC chairman. In those days, he had become DGM, Deputy General Manager of HDFC, because he was H.T. Parekh's nephew. So by virtue of that, he was absorbed, and he's an extraordinary brilliant man actually, very, very high caliber. So one day Deepak and I were going in a lift and I casually, jokingly said, "Arey yaar Deepak bhai, मेरे wife को कुछ देखो HDFC में कुछ होता है." Because HDFC had just started, 77. Lot of things happened in 77. I must tell you that. Gunida started in 77, NCPA started in 77. HDFC also started in 77. And HDFC was in one big room next to my cabin in ICSI, in Raman House building. I have seen HDFC growing from people who were not their employees. They were loaned from ICICI actually. A stenotypist and Pradeep Shah, who was the very competent man, but he was related to H.T. Parekh. So he was, and then later on I saw the HDFC because it was the first time something like a mortgage company coming into existence in India. And they were recruiting. So Deepak bhai told me, "Arey, don't worry, send her tomorrow." And next day I brought and he gave her appointment letter, and then she started. And she made a good career, worked there for 36
Very
years,
good.
and retired as a general manager. So she had only one job of HDFC from beginning till end. And because of that, so when I decided this in 86, 87 to quit the job, she was already well settled in HDFC. She said, "Don't worry, we can manage." So that's how her support was very, very vital at that time. But once I started performing, I think God has been kind, blessings of parents, my Guruji, I never had to look back. And because most important is people accepting you as a performer is the most important thing. And maybe that happened to me. And that's how, I must say, then many things happened. I remember, I don't mind taking names. Harsh Goenka started following me. He put his HMB's managing director behind me. He said, "You do whatever, but you get Satish Vyas in HMB." So I then became consultant to HMB for 6-7 years, and so many things happened. Then become a honorary director of Navras Records which is in UK. Now, of course, Navras, we have sold it to Sony Music. So Sony is all the time in touch with me and whatever they were. But unfortunately, due to pandemic, not much activity is being done. Otherwise, once in fortnight, I used to go to Sony for a meeting. The management always consults me on classical music aspects of anything. So that was corporate but now since last 30 years, main focus is only on performance. And of course, now this has become routine, the Gunidas and all that. And there are certain people whom I must mention here. Gunidas became such a, as national event, later on international event. So बोलते ना कभी कभी नसीब भी बहुत अच्छा होना चाहिए, and I think God has blessed me with that. Till 88 we used to do this brochure business, and I used to get, after 10 years I started, I also told यार ये बहुत झमेला है, इसके पास जाओ उसके पास जाओ, उसका रिकॉर्ड रखो, एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन करो. And my main heart was in doing practice, performance and all that. So compromising time was becoming a problem for me. But as luck to have it, I remember in 88, Jerry Rao had attended our festival in Nehru Center. We had shifted to Nehru Center that first year. And he attended 2 concerts in that Gunidas Sammelan, Bhimsen Joshi and my father, CRS. So after 3 days, after the festival got over, I had shifted to Pune for a couple of years, thinking that I may be able to do music more because it is cultural city and all that. So the Jerry Rao had put his secretary on job to see that he wanted to meet me personally. So someday, anybody, they talked to NCPA, they got my number, so they contacted me on my landline because mobiles had not reached India by then. And I came to meet Jerry Rao, and believe me, across the table, he asked me, he says, I had attended 2 days and I'm so impressed with Gunidas' entire meticulous planning and the performances, the stage deco, everything. So he says, I would like to do something for Gunidas. So I said, what do you mean by that? So he asked me, what are the expenses like? So I said, look, when it started, it was 75,000 rupees. In last 12 years, it has 10 times it has increased. So in 88 or so, our budget was 7.5 to 9 lakhs. So he said, look, I will underwrite your all expenses. Don't have to worry about souvenir brochure and all that. And that's how then our association with Citibank lasted for 20 years till 2011. Citibank was there, which was a good association. But then worldwide Citibank went into financial problems, so they had to discontinue. Later on, Mr. Praveen Kandle came on the scene, and I remember when I met him, he said, this is like a dream come true for me because I have been attending Gunidas since my college days. And now I have this opportunity to sponsor this event. Is something great pleasure for me. So Tata Capital continued for 5-6 years. But last 3-4 years, we are taking sponsorship from different people. But it's going on very nicely. So that's as far as, this is how various hats I was.
Well, I must get back to your time when Pandit Shivkumar Sharma ji asked you to play independently,
Yes.
and then your independent journey as a performer started, and you performed almost on all the stages that this country has, and also quite abroad.
Yeah.
And the recent big thing that happened to you, apart from the Padma Shri which you received, I think about 5 years back, I still recall the day when early morning I met. Yeah.
2003. It is almost
Yeah.
9 years back.
9 years back, and I recall that I knocked at your door early in the morning and told you that you got Padma Shri,
You were
and
the first one.
you
You were
had
the
a
first
shock
one
of.
to. That
Yeah.
was way back
So
in 2003.
that's right. That's right. So the recent one was the Tansen Award.
Yeah, recent
So now
one.
tell us something about this Tansen Award. Yeah.
It was really, I'm honest about this, this was a big surprise for me because Madhya Pradesh government, and I get a call on 23rd, 22nd, 23rd December in 2020 that I have just come out of the meeting, the jury unanimously have selected your name. So I said, what? He said, no, we have seen that you are not only as a Santoor artist, but overall your contribution has been very huge to Indian classical music, and unanimously they have decided. So I said, with all humility, I accept this. So that was something which is really a big honor, I would say. Very, very big honor. Tansen Samman. Yeah, of course, it's all due to my Guruji and my father, mother, I would say.
Well, compliments to you for having so many accolades, so many awards, and but then every artist, every creative person has some long-term dream in their minds. You know, they want to do something that is very exclusive, that's very exquisite, and something that the outside world may not know. I am sure you have some such secret in your mind as to this is my destination and this I would definitely have to achieve before it's too late. So are there any such hidden dreams in your mind, Satishji?
Yeah. See, about few years back, 10, 12 years back, I had one thing that I must also make an attempt to do collaboration with Western musicians, which of course I did, and there is one album called Resonance, which is released by Sony Music, and it has done extremely well. Similarly, a thematic album I had done, which is released by Times Music, because see, playing rag and bringing out those records are continuous process. Of course, today the entire complex, entire game of recordings have completely changed now because everything is available online. So I think for the youngsters, they are finding different avenues, you know, for releasing. So my biggest challenge is now how to our classical music, we should, through my Santoor, how do I try to make it reach to more number of people? What other collaborations I can do? And maybe one hidden dream is to do some composing actually for either some, you know, maybe documentary film or something like that. You know, is one of the I would say hidden dream is that. And of course, classical. See, this is such an endless journey. At this time, at my age now, I sometimes think, oh, whatever I have learned, have I really understood completely? You know, the thought of how much I know against how much I do not know is scary. So one of the most major point is to understand each rag more and more, you know, because there is no full stop to that. So that study is very, very important, you know, and then your scope becomes less. कि अगर बागेश्वरी है तो अरे बागेश्वरी में बहुत कुछ कर सकते हैं या any other rag, you know. So that we cannot say कि मैंने complete कर लिया है. So that on one side that research is going on कि still what we can do. Can I do some other from the point of view of development of rag, if I can add something of my own imagination, it's a design.
Satishji, there is a comment that they are not able to hear your audio. Can you just check whether your speaker is on? There is some problem there.
No, but it's It's there because
It's a kind of jumping. Is it all right?
in fact, your internet sometimes becomes you become static. So your Wi-Fi some problem. Sometimes I get that feeling, but not very seriously. But sometimes you get static there. Is my voice audible now?
Maybe you continue. It get resolved. Maybe you can continue. Yeah.
Yeah, because you see, sometimes there is a delay in your action and your voice, and sometimes you become static.
Okay, we'll continue.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah. So there are quite a few things which are in mind, but I hope once this pandemic gets over, because now the entire the thought process, particularly after pandemic, has changed. So we have to visualize how the music world will revive and get the same glory. We have to see that. But research, all that is a personal matter which we are trying to do, as I mentioned to you.
Excellent. And with that, I want you to make some comments on the digital media in today's perspective, especially since you have seen the radio time, then the television came, then you launched the CD into the market, where the singers who otherwise could not be heard extensively had an opportunity to record their CD and distribute it all over the world.
Yes.
And today you have a very, very strong and very youngish kind of a digital media, where even a small child in a village can quickly record something, put it onto the internet, and it can be heard anywhere in the world. So the whole concept of communicating good music has undergone a sea change, and today anybody can do anything. While this is definitely a very encouraging and a very welcome situation, but it also brings in a problem in terms of the quality of music. Sometimes not so good quality gets promoted because of the number of hits, and it's absolutely counterproductive. So as a very seasoned artist, equally adept with the technology and the way people listen to good music. Now, what is your take on this aspect?
No, see, as much as the digital media has advantages, there are a lot of disadvantages. Number one, first of all, we must understand classical music is, however we may try, commercially, we try to acknowledge, try to get big crowd and all that, but ultimately, it will remain for a niche audience. Let us accept that. Classical music cannot be mass media thing. Unfortunately, there are a lot of musicians, young musicians, they might think, because they look at the few artists who have achieved that glamour. But see, but that glamour, everybody can't be blessed with that kind of thing, very few. And the times when they got this was different, and today it is different. Today, the communication technique has become so, on various platforms. So a lot of people are putting videos, but according to me, now it has become so much that people are not ready to look at this visual medium. And for classical music, let me tell you, putting performances or holding performances virtually is not a permanent solution. Not a permanent solution. But as you said rightly, that there is sometimes a music which is not even worth listening, but they are there on the. So what is happening? It is, I would say, it is a deterrent for propagation of classical music. Because if somebody goes through a music which is not of good quality, then a person who is listening for the ये classical music है, हमको तो सुनना ही नहीं है. You understand? So too much is too bad. Now everybody records in the home or do something and keep putting on the Facebook or Instagram or other platforms. So it is 50-50. I would say definitely it will help artists to. The good artists are brought in. They get the platform. They get the platform because if organizers see it, or some big musicians see, he is a good performer, so he must be recommended. So these advantages are definitely there. So one has to look positively, but as I said rightly, ultimately for performers like us, sitting in front of audience, and because it is an interactive art, you have to get feedback of the audience right then and there. This is a dead medium. When I'm sitting, so I refused. I did 1 or 2 concerts. Later on, a lot of people approached me. I said, no, I'm not doing any virtual programs at all, because sitting in your home and putting mobile phone or iPad and doing it's very, it's a dry thing, because musician likes to get the feedback from audience, and that can happen only in live concerts. So we have to wait patiently for this and not go. But it is a human nature to become impatient, feel insecure. That is, you can't help it, and especially I feel sorry for younger generation artists, those who started their career just now, and this pandemic has put some kind of a big stop there, right now. But I'm sure in coming days this will go away, and we will go back to the glory of classical music. So virtual medium is okay, partly I would say, but not a complete answer to the live concerts.
Excellent remarks. I think coming from a person who's equally knowledgeable on music, technology, and also the rasikatvam. Yes. The audience are a very important component of good music. Absolutely. Unless the performer sees 2 heads nodding, enjoying the piece, they get motivated, inspired, and that is not feasible in a virtual mode where you don't see the audience. The audience do not see you directly, but they only see you through a frame or a monitor. So yes, there are issues, but at the same time, I think the technology, yeah.
The point is the span of attention of an average viewer or a listener is very small. They see for a couple of minutes and then they move to other things because there is too much available. Too many things are. So true. This is really becoming, so what ultimately, like radio, I'm sorry to say, Akashvani, later on, last maybe more than 15 years, now though they are not giving programs to any artist for whatever reason, but when they used to give pre-pandemic time, they used to give 1 or 2 concerts per artist. Apart from artist and his family, I don't think anybody was listening to Akashvani program. Sometimes the artist himself used to forget, Arey, mera program, I had a radio program yesterday and I forgot to listen. That is the situation. So with this now, what has happened in 2 years, I think it is like unbelievable that there is too much material available. You have material on YouTube, you have on iTunes, everywhere there is too much. And apart from that, you are fighting against the most popular medium, Bollywood. Films is the most powerful medium. And the majority of people go through, they want to, see OTT platform and all that. So it is completely gone haywire according to me, So concentration of people cannot be. Now the same thing, like recently we had Gunida Sammelan in December and you were there at that time. And you saw the 50% audience was a lot, but it was full with 50% audience. Because audience wants live concerts. They don't want to see, the serious music lover do not want to see on iPad or mobile or screen, in short. They want to attend concerts live.
True.
Nobody.
And
as far as classical music is concerned, I am making a statement, 100% only live concert in front of audience is the answer, nothing else. This virtual medium cannot be replaced. Not even,
maybe it can just act as a temporary situation. When there is a pandemic, you can't be physically alive, so that's okay. But otherwise, audience, live music, live stage, yes, is the ultimate. That is what classical music is all about.
Absolutely, because we have nuances of rag and.
Well, with that, yeah. So with that, I think we are reaching the concluding phase of this one hour conversation titled Sambhashanam. And InSync TV, I must tell you that today is possibly the world's largest classical music platform, and it is seen by 30 million viewers all over the country. And like I announced at the very beginning, we are planning to show the Prime Minister's speech on classical music, which he delivered yesterday on the occasion of the 92nd birth anniversary of Pandit Jasraj. So it is such a golden era now that we are back into action with classical music. And Panditji has rightly mentioned, live music will happen, live events will happen. And today we have an establishment which is not only encouraging this format, but which is so intensely connected with the classical music world. And at the highest level, at the level of Prime Minister, if he speaks so eloquently about classical music, I think we are all in for a good time. And Panditji, it's a great pleasure. It's a great pleasure talking to you and your family of musicians. And I'm only happy that we have got we have become a little more closer in the last 1 week.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure, and thank you once again. And it's a great thing. And I must tell you, with concluding remarks, InSync will definitely have a large audience, because InSync is a TV channel. It is not a gadget-oriented thing. Though you might do on InSync and all that as an extension to the television channel.
Correct.
People like to see television. That is very good. But not on this social media like Facebook and all that. That is not going to be a lasting medium. You know, lot of people do Facebook live concert. It will not have audience actually. But TV channel is different. You know, TV channel will have a lasting effect.
That's right.
So with that, I thank you once again for inviting me for this Sambhashanam, and all the best to InSync and everyone who is there.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All the very best. Namaskaram.